The legal walls haven't just closed in on Donald Trump, they have essentially vanished, replaced by a hidden trapdoor that no one in his inner circle ever realized was there. We are witnessing a moment that legal historians will likely point to as a total seismic shift because the Supreme Court just detonated a judicial bombshell that has left the former president and his high-priced legal team in a state of absolute paralyzed shock. Before we dive into the staggering details of this unprecedented judicial ambush, please take a second to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a breaking update on the cases shaping our future. In a move that has stunned even the most seasoned observers of the High Court, the justices have mandated that Trump immediately follow through with a subpoena for a massive cache of financial records and private communications, documents that his own attorneys were apparently completely unaware even existed until this very moment. This wasn't a standard rejection of an appeal. Instead, the court pulled back the curtain on a covert grand jury investigation that has been operating in the shadows, parallel to every other prosecution we already knew about. Now, the former president is under a strict legal mandate to hand over files that could potentially open up an entirely new and devastating front of criminal liability. It is almost impossible to wrap your head around the fact that the Supreme Court managed to keep this entire operation a total secret for months on end. We are talking about an under-the-radar legal proceeding so tightly guarded that even Trump's most senior counsel had no clue it was happening until the final ruling landed like a lead weight on their desks. The justices didn't provide any typical heads up. There were no public schedules, no televised oral arguments, and zero chances for Trump's defense to build a barricade or even draft a press release. One minute, Donald Trump believed he had a handle on the legal battlefield he was navigating, and the next, the very earth shifted beneath him, leaving him on a completely different and far more dangerous terrain. This is about so much more than just another courtroom loss. We are seeing the highest judicial authority in the United States reveal that a clandestine probe has been active this whole time, handling evidence so incredibly sensitive that the very existence of the subpoena itself was classified as a state secret. You have to understand that the ripples from this judicial ambush are going to fundamentally rewrite everything we thought we understood about the true extent of Trump's legal peril. To truly grasp why this is such a world-ending event for the defense, you have to appreciate just how rare it is for the Supreme Court to abandon its usual transparency. Generally, the way the court functions is an open book. Every case is listed on a public docket for the world to see. Oral arguments are circled on calendars months in advance, and legal briefs are filed in the public record where journalists and scholars can dissect every syllable. In the normal course of business, there are no shadows and there are no secrets. However, the court does hold a specific, rarely used power to conduct business under seal, but only in the most extreme circumstances where national security or other vital interests are at stake. This is a tool that has been used with extreme caution throughout the history of the American Republic, reserved almost exclusively for matters involving top-secret intelligence, active spy operations, or situations where telling the public would cause immediate catastrophic damage to the country. According to the documents released on December 7th, this clandestine saga actually kicked off more than a year ago. It started when a grand jury issued a subpoena demanding a mountain of Trump's personal and business financial records, along with communications linked to what the court describes as matters of profound national concern. Because that subpoena was served under seal, Trump was legally gagged. He was served with the demand, but was strictly forbidden by law from telling a soul that it existed, a restriction that applied equally to his lawyers. The real twist here is that Trump didn't just sit back. He apparently fought this subpoena tooth and nail through secret filings, using the same arguments of executive privilege and absolute immunity that he has touted in his public battles. These arguments climbed the ladder of the federal court system in total silence, away from the prying eyes of the media. The lower courts tossed his claims out, the appeals court did the same, and now the Supreme Court has delivered the final blow in a ruling that both reveals the secret and demands immediate action. Chief Justice John Roberts, writing for the court, made it crystal clear that the documents being sought involve behavior that falls completely outside anything that could even remotely be called a protected presidential act. The opinion further noted that Trump has already exhausted every single legitimate legal avenue to block or stall this process, and the court has officially run out of patience for any further foot-dragging. When you listen to the legal experts who have dissected the wording of this ruling, they highlight a terrifying reality for the Trump camp. This isn't about the classified documents in Florida. It's not about the events of January 6th, and it isn't related to the Georgia election case. This is a fourth massive legal front that was kept in reserve, a ghost ship that Trump never saw on his radar until it was already firing its cannons. Now, we have seen the Supreme Court rule against Donald Trump before, but this is a different animal entirely because of the sheer element of surprise. It reveals a hidden architecture of legal trouble that has been looming over him for a year without his knowledge. If you look back at other major losses, the difference is stark. When the court struck down his claims of total immunity earlier this year, his team was ready for the impact because they had argued the case in the light of day. They had backup plans. It was a heavy hit, but they saw the punch coming. Even back in 2020, when the court allowed New York prosecutors to go after his tax returns, it wasn't a shock. That fight had been playing out in public for years, giving his lawyers plenty of time to run simulations and prepare for the fallout. You can even go back to the famous Watergate-era case of the United States versus Nixon. When the court forced Richard Nixon to hand over the White House tapes, he knew exactly what was coming. He had time to weigh his options and ultimately decide to resign before those recordings could be made public. This current situation, however, has no precedent. Trump's inner circle had no idea this secret litigation was even happening at the appellate level. They were never given the chance to prepare a landing pad for this outcome. They started their morning thinking they had a map of all their problems, and by lunchtime they realized the map was missing an entire continent of trouble. Reports coming out of the New York Times on December 7th suggest that Trump's top lawyers actually found out about the ruling from the news cycle rather than the court. Because the whole thing was under seal, even the basic administrative alerts were blocked. One insider described the atmosphere at Mar-a-Lago as nothing short of total, unmitigated chaos, with lawyers frantically trying to figure out which documents were actually being demanded and how on earth they were supposed to meet the deadline. This brings us to the familiar pattern of how Trump usually handles a legal defeat. In the past, whenever a ruling went against him, he would launch an immediate offensive against the judges, file an instant appeal, or claim that the evidence was faked or planted. His strategy has always been a three-pronged attack of delay, delegitimize, and destroy. But in this specific instance, that playbook is effectively useless. This subpoena has already been through the entire gauntlet of the federal court system. There is nowhere left to go because the Supreme Court is the end of the line. There are no more appeals to file and no more delay tactics to employ. The clock is already running, and according to the court's order, the deadline for full compliance is exactly 72 hours from the moment the decision was made public. We aren't talking about weeks of negotiation, we are talking about 3 days. To make matters even more dire, the court added a chilling warning that has sent shivers through the legal community. The opinion explicitly states that any attempt to provide a half-hearted response, any effort to obstruct the process, or any failure to comply in good faith will trigger immediate proceedings for both civil and criminal contempt. The court even went as far as to mention that the sanctions for such a failure could include pretrial detention. Essentially, the justices have looked Donald Trump in the eye and told him that if he tries his usual games, he could be sitting in a jail cell while he waits for his trials to begin. This escalating level of judicial sternness shows a court that has simply had enough of the political theater. They have watched him insult the judiciary and treat the legal process like a campaign rally, and this ruling signals that the era of tolerance is over. If you're finding this deep dive into the legal world helpful, make sure to like this video and share it with someone who needs to know the truth about what's happening behind the scenes. Now, the big question is, what exactly is in this secret subpoena that has the Trump team in such a panic? When you look at the portions of the demand that were made public in the court's ruling, the requests are much broader and more intrusive than anyone could have guessed. The prosecutors are going after 3 specific high-stakes categories. The first is a demand for every single financial record from Trump's business world, stretching all the way back to 2015. This includes every transaction involving a foreign entity, the specific terms of every loan he's ever taken, and every piece of paper related to how he valued his properties. This strikes at the very heart of the long-standing allegations of money laundering and financial fraud that have dogged him for a decade. The second category is even more sensitive. It demands every communication between Trump and a list of foreign nationals whose names have been blacked out in the public version of the ruling. The court specifically cited national security as the reason for keeping these names hidden, which strongly implies that these people are linked to foreign governments or intelligence agencies. This has people wondering if we are about to see evidence of everything from backroom deals with Russian billionaires to off-the-books meetings with foreign officials during his time in the White House. The third category, and perhaps the most explosive, involves documents related to what the court calls efforts to secure things of value from foreign sources for use in American elections. This language is a direct echo of federal laws that make it a crime for any foreign entity to contribute to a U.S. campaign. This suggests that there is an active investigation into whether Trump or his team took illegal help from abroad to win or keep power. This creates a massive, multidimensional problem for the defense. These demands don't just sit alongside his current cases, they expand them exponentially. The financial records might provide the missing links for the New York fraud case, or they might reveal entirely new crimes that haven't even been charged yet. Trump's attorneys are facing a literal mission impossible. They have less than 3 days to find, organize, and hand over a decade's worth of data. They probably don't even know where all this stuff is kept. They are being forced to review millions of pages for legal privilege, while knowing that the court will not give them a single extra hour of breathing room. According to sources who spoke with Politico on December 7th, the emergency meeting held at Mar-a-Lago was grim. One lawyer reportedly compared the task to trying to drain the entire Atlantic Ocean with nothing but a small teaspoon. The sheer volume of the data is staggering, the timeline is a joke, and the penalty for failure is a prison cell. But as bad as the logistics are, the actual content of the documents is the real nightmare. Whatever it is that Trump has been trying to bury for over a year of secret litigation is about to see the light of day. The fact that the court took such extreme measures to keep this quiet suggests that the prosecutors believe they have found something that could end his political and legal career permanently. As the reality of this situation began to sink in, Trump's emotional state reportedly went into a total tailspin. Various reports from major outlets like CNN and MSNBC describe his reaction as nothing short of volcanic. Insiders say he was heard screaming at his staff, throwing things, and demanding to know who betrayed him by letting this secret case move forward without a successful defense. But the truth is, there was no inside man. His lawyers did everything they could to stop it. They just lost. And because of the legal secrecy involved, they weren't allowed to tell him much about the progress. The very shadows that Trump often uses to hide his own actions and manipulate the public narrative actually became his own prison. He couldn't go on television to complain about a case that officially didn't exist, so he couldn't build up a wall of public support to protect him. Naturally, Trump did what he always does when cornered. He made the situation significantly worse. Within hours of the news breaking, he took to Truth Social to launch a scorched earth attack on the Supreme Court, including the very justices he personally appointed to the bench. He called the whole thing a sneak attack by a group of corrupt judges, and even suggested that Chief Justice Roberts had been compromised by some unknown force. He insisted the ruling was a violation of the Constitution and declared he would not follow what he called an illegitimate order. Legal experts were quick to point out that these posts are basically a gift to the prosecution. They are clear evidence of a willful intent to break the law. If he fails to meet that 72-hour deadline, the government won't have to guess if it was because the task was too hard. They can just point to his social media posts and prove he never intended to comply in the first place. Andrew Weissman, a former federal prosecutor, noted on MSNBC that Trump is essentially inviting the court to throw him in jail. When a defendant tells the whole world they are going to ignore a Supreme Court order, they are effectively signing their own arrest warrant. This leaves Donald Trump in a position where there are no good endings. If he follows the law and turns over the files, he is providing the very evidence that could lead to new indictments and a potential life sentence. He is handing over the keys to his own vault. But if he refuses, he faces immediate arrest for contempt. We could be looking at the surreal image of a former president and current candidate being held in a detention center, not for his alleged crimes, but simply for being in contempt of court. That would be a moment of historical magnitude that the country has never seen. A former leader behind bars while his trials are still in the works. And because the Supreme Court has already had the final word, there are no more motions to file and no more delay tactics to buy time. The door is locked. It's a trap that Trump built for himself by choosing to fight the subpoena in the dark for a year, rather than dealing with it when it first arrived. He spent a fortune in legal fees and a year of time only to end up in a worse position than he started. This entire drama is sending massive shockwaves through the Republican Party and Trump's legal circles because it raises a very scary question: what else is going on that we don't know about? Reporting from the Washington Post on December 7th indicates that Trump's allies are in a state of sheer panic, trying to figure out if there are other silent investigations currently making their way through the courts. If the Justice Department could keep this one a secret all the way to the Supreme Court, there's no telling how many other landmines are buried in the path. This level of uncertainty is a psychological nightmare for a defense team that has spent months planning their strategy around a specific set of known problems. Now, they have to accept that their entire strategy was based on an incomplete picture of the truth. To add more fuel to the fire, there are now reports that at least 2 of Trump's lawyers are looking for the exit. Sources told CNN that these attorneys are considering quitting because they feel they weren't given the full story by their client. They are worried that they have been representing a man who kept them in the dark about his most dangerous legal threats. If these lawyers leave now, it would be an absolute disaster for Trump. Any new lawyers would need months to get up to speed, but the court isn't going to stop the 72-hour clock just because Trump needs to hire new help. And given how much his reputation has suffered in the legal world, finding top-tier lawyers willing to take on this impossible task is going to be incredibly difficult. While this is happening, the attorney who has already been cooperating with the government, the one who leaked the audio recordings, is reportedly filling in the blanks for the investigators. Sources say this witness has specific knowledge of exactly which documents Trump was trying to keep hidden and can even testify about conversations where Trump discussed the danger of these records ever being discovered. If that's true, the prosecutors aren't just fishing, they have a map of the pond. They know exactly what should be in those files, and if Trump tries to leave anything out or delete anything, they will know immediately. This will make any attempt at a partial response look like a criminal act of obstruction. Let's really look at what this means for Trump's future, because the danger here goes way beyond what has been talked about on the nightly news. First, the demand for financial records going back to 2015 suggests that the government is looking at a systemic pattern of behavior, not just a few one-off mistakes. By looking at every foreign transaction for the last decade, they are likely searching for evidence of long-term money laundering or violations of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Experts who spoke to CBS News noted that a subpoena this broad is almost unheard of unless the prosecutors have a very strong reason to believe they are looking at a massive multi-year criminal enterprise. Second, the focus on foreign nationals and national security is a major red flag. This isn't just about money, it's about counterintelligence. The court's use of that specific language suggests that Trump might have been communicating with people linked to foreign spy agencies. This brings up all the old unanswered questions about his ties to Russia, his secret meetings with Vladimir Putin, and his handling of top-secret data. This subpoena might finally be the thing that provides the hard evidence to answer those questions once and for all. Third, the focus on foreign campaign support is a direct threat to his political future. If it can be proven that he took things of value from a foreign power to help his election efforts, that is a foundational crime against American democracy. Experts told MSNBC that the wording the court used is almost a word-for-word match for the laws against foreign campaign interference. It's a sign that the government already has a significant amount of evidence and is just looking for the final documents to close the case. When you combine all these elements, the money, the foreign spies, and the campaign crimes, you get an investigation that is far more serious than anything Trump has faced so far. This isn't about some paperwork error, it's about potential corruption at the highest levels of power. Constitutional scholars like Lawrence Tribe have pointed out that this might be the most important Supreme Court ruling since the fall of Richard Nixon. He noted that while the secrecy is unusual, it seems to be justified by national security risks that we might not even understand for years to come. Even Jonathan Turley, a conservative voice who has often been a defender of the former president, admitted on Fox News that this ruling is an existential threat. When even your own supporters are telling you that the end might be near, you know you are in a historic amount of trouble. We are entering a phase where this isn't just about one man anymore, it's about the future of the American system itself. It raises profound questions about how we hold presidents accountable and how we protect our secrets. First, we have to see what these files actually contain. If Trump gives them up, we might finally get the answers to questions that have been tearing the country apart since 2016. However, because much of this is tied to national security, the public might only see a small part of the story through future indictments and trials. We might have to wait years to see the full picture of what was being hidden in those files. Second, this ruling sets a massive precedent for every future president. The court has now made it clear that no leader is above a secret grand jury, and that executive privilege isn't a magic wand that can stop an investigation into private conduct. Future presidents will have to live with the knowledge that they can be investigated in secret and forced to comply with the law in a matter of days once their appeals are done. The era of using the media and the slow pace of the courts to hide from the law is coming to an end. We are also left wondering what the intelligence community knows that we don't. The very fact that this had to be kept a secret suggests that the information is so volatile that it could cause national harm just by being mentioned. What have the spies found? How long have they been watching? These are the questions that will haunt the political landscape for a long time. Politically, the timing couldn't be worse for Trump. He is currently the leading candidate for the GOP, but now he has to explain to his voters why he was fighting a secret legal battle for a year. How do his supporters handle this? Some will definitely see it as more deep state nonsense, but others might start to ask why their candidate was so desperate to hide these specific documents. Recent polling suggests that most Americans, including a lot of Republicans, still believe that no one is above a subpoena. The idea of the rule of law still has a lot of power. Democrats are obviously going to use this as a primary weapon, arguing that someone who is secretly fighting the Supreme Court to hide evidence isn't fit to hold the nuclear codes. They will ask the simple question, what is he so afraid of? Meanwhile, Republican leaders are stuck in a nightmare. Do they attack the court and risk looking like they hate the Constitution, or do they walk away from Trump and risk the anger of his loyal base? There are no winners here, so let's wrap this up. The Supreme Court has just revealed a year-long secret investigation into Donald Trump's finances and foreign ties. He has been ordered to turn over a decade of records within 72 hours or face immediate jail time for contempt. He was completely caught off guard. His lawyers are in a panic, and the scope of the investigation is far bigger than anything we've seen before. This is a legal ambush of the highest order. Trump has no more cards to play. He either hands over the evidence that could end his career, or he goes to jail for refusing. Either way, the truth is coming out. We've reached a turning point where the secrets of the past are colliding with the reality of the present. Before you go, make sure to leave a comment below and tell us if you think this is the moment that finally changes everything, or just another chapter in this long legal saga. The next 3 days are going to be some of the most important in the history of American law. We are watching a former president who has finally been cornered with no way out. The stakes are as high as they can get, the time is shorter than it's ever been, and the result will change the course of our democracy forever. Whatever is in those files, we are about to find out, and the truth is coming faster than anyone could have imagined. This is the moment of truth, and there is nowhere left to hide.